Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into the economic story of Italy's Friuli Venezia Giulia region. We're going to use hard data to get past the headlines and really understand what's going on. So what's the real story here? Is this region an economic powerhouse, a success story of growth and employment, or is it actually facing a quiet but very real decline that could threaten its future? It really depends on who you ask, and more importantly, which numbers you look at. And this is right at the heart of the confusion. The official story you hear, often from political leaders, is all about success. They point to record-high employment numbers. But then there's the lived reality for so many people. Wages that aren't going anywhere, unstable jobs, and a whole generation of young people leaving to find opportunities somewhere else. So how do we cut through all that noise and figure out what's what? Well, you've got to look past the rhetoric and dive straight into the numbers. Okay, let's get into it.
To get to the bottom of this, we're going to lean on the work at Relaunching Friuli. This is an initiative led by the economist Fulvio Mattioni, and their whole mission is to paint a clear, fact-based picture of the region's economy, specifically to see how the official narrative holds up against the hard data.
And this is huge. They've just launched a new tool to do exactly this. It's called OSE. That's OSEE, and it's a socioeconomic observatory. Its whole purpose is to publish the most up-to-date data so that any conversation about the region's future has to start with the facts, not just opinions.
The founder, Fulvio Mattioni, has this brilliant way of summing it all up. He says, numeri per non dare I numeri. Now, in Italian, the phrase dare I numeri is an idiom that means to talk nonsense or to lose your mind. So what he's really saying is, let's use numbers so we don't speak nonsense. It's about using data as a flashlight, to find your way through the confusion.
All right, so let's put that idea into practice. We're going to start by digging into that big claim of record employment. Let's see what the numbers really say about the quality of work in Friuli Venezia Giulia.
And this quote from Mattioni just absolutely nails the paradox. He flips an old slogan to reveal a pretty harsh truth. What's been achieved is that people are working, sure, but they're working more for a lot less pay. It's a classic story of quantity over quality.
And here is the hard proof. Just look at this breakdown of new job contracts. Less than 15%, 15, are permanent. That means the other 85+% are fixed-term, temporary, or precarious in some other way. That is not a solid foundation for building a career or a life.
And all that job insecurity, it has a direct and pretty devastating financial impact. This data shows that almost 1/3 of all employees in the region earn a gross annual salary that is below the official poverty line. Let that sink in. They have a job, but they're still poor.
And this chart tells you exactly where that low pay is coming from. Manufacturing still offers a relatively decent wage, but look over at the tourism sector, the very industry that's often pushed as the region's economic future. The average salary there, just over 10,000 euros a year. That's barely 1/3 of a manufacturing salary.
Okay, so let's zoom out. We've seen what's happening on the ground. How does Friuli Venezia Giulia stack up against its competitors, both across Europe and right next door?
While the long-term view is pretty stark. Over the last 30 years, while major economies like Germany and France saw real wages grow, in Italy, and that includes Friuli Venezia Giulia, they've actually fallen by almost 9%. Workers today have less purchasing power than they did a generation ago.
And it's not just an international thing. Even within the wealthy northeast of Italy, FVG is falling behind. When you compare it to the other regions in that macro area, we're talking Veneto, Trentino Alto Adige, and Emilia-Romagna, Friuli Venezia Giulia ranks dead last for average salaries.
Relaunching Friuli uses this really powerful metaphor to make the data stick. While other regions are lepri, hares, sprinting into the future, FVG has become like a gambaro, a crayfish, which, as you probably know, walks backwards. It's such a memorable image for a really worrying trend.
And this economic stagnation is creating a perfect demographic storm. You've got young people leaving in huge numbers with no plans to ever return. The population that's left is getting older and older, which is going to put enormous pressure on healthcare and social services. And as if that weren't enough, the region has to figure out how to replace 75,000 retiring workers in the next few years with no clear plan to do it.
So the data paints a pretty grim picture. But, and this is a really important part of their work, Relaunching Friuli isn't about doom and gloom. It's about using this clear-eyed diagnosis to propose actual positive solutions. It's about asking, okay, so how do we turn this ship around?
And they propose a really concrete 5-point plan. First, tackle the job situation, support high-quality manufacturing, and create a fund to fight poverty. Second, face the demographic crisis head-on. Actively manage immigration to fill those labor gaps and invest in healthcare for an aging population. And finally, empower people from the ground up by giving more functions back to local communities.
But you know, a technical plan isn't quite enough. And this quote from the source material really gets to the heart of it. A community needs a shared dream, a common vision for the future that inspires everyone to pull together and commit. The data can show you the path, but it's that shared purpose that actually provides the fuel for the journey.
And that leaves us with this final, crucial question. The data's clear. The problems have been identified. Potential solutions are on the table. The numbers have cleared away the fog, so the question isn't really what to do anymore. It's whether the region has the collective will to actually do it.